Well, yesterday I entered my first Pokemon Pocket online tournament and I almost won the entire thing. Well, as you can see, this tournament was very large. There was about almost 100 people, there's like 94 I think, and this was hosted by the Wide League. If you don't know about the Wide League, they host VGC tournaments and now Pokemon Pocket tournaments as well. So definitely go check them out. Good friends of the channel, very good people over there, so always recommend their tournaments and events. But yeah, this was a pretty big event, their first one for Pokemon Pocket. And I actually have not entered any Pokemon Pocket tournaments previously. I always plan to kind of do it and then I don't find the time and I don't really enter. But when I saw that they were going to be doing one, I knew that I had to enter because it was a Friday night, it was late at night, it was a time that I could actually join. This went on for quite a while because there were a lot of rounds. You know, it was the first tournament, it all makes sense. But overall, very good ran event. Lots of good players, lots of interesting decks to talk about. And yeah, as you can see, there is my name. I got 5th place at this tournament. I went 8-1. I actually started 8-0, and then I ended up losing in top cut. And the person I ended up losing to actually ended up winning the whole tournament, so I don't feel bad about myself anymore. You know, they ended up beating me, they won the whole tournament, so it always feels good to know that you only lost to the person that actually won the whole thing. So I'll kind of talk about the meta overall with the tournament, and then I'll kind of go into my thought process with the deck. I gotta go ahead and apologize because, you know, yesterday I uploaded a video and I played against a Weezing and Arbok, and I was like, how is this actually a real deck, right? And then I lost to it, and I was like, oh, that's actually kind of crazy. And so going into this tournament, I didn't really know what to play. I had never used Weezing Arbok before, but it seemed really interesting when I lost to it. So I was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and give it a shot and see what happens. And yeah, the deck went crazy. I went 8-0 with it. I ended up losing in top cut, and I think it was the perfect pick for this tournament. Now, as you can kind of see on the right side, I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in a little bit here. Going from top to bottom, lots of Pikachu, lots of electric decks, of course, lots of Gardevoir, Mewtwo. Those are kind of the two big meta decks right now. We did have a water deck in top 8. I don't remember if I played them or not. I think I played against maybe one water deck. We can kind of take a look at it. But lots of electric. We do have a fighting deck. I actually ended up beating them with the dark deck, which was interesting. It was a very close game. And then we do have some Weezing Arbok decks as well, a couple fire decks and things like that. But for the most part, you can see a lot of the meta right now is obviously electric and then Mewtwo Gardevoir. That's kind of all that we really saw. There really wasn't a lot of water decks, surprisingly. I thought there'd be a little bit more. And then as far as like grass decks, I didn't get to see that too much. I didn't play against any fire decks. You didn't really see too much as well. It was a lot of, honestly, Mewtwo Gardevoir, electric decks, and then honestly a lot of Weezing, whether it's like Weezing Wigglytuff or Weezing Arbok. There was a lot of those variations with that. And yeah, out of 94 players, 23 used Mewtwo Gardevoir, so basically a fourth of all people were using that deck. And like I said, it's just different variations of electric decks, different variations of Weezing or Arbok, which is very interesting. Nothing too crazy or out of the ordinary. Now right here is a list that I came up with, and I will have it linked in the description if you guys want to test it out. I went with something pretty basic here. Obviously, going against this deck earlier yesterday, I knew I wanted to do something with Weezing Arbok, and I kind of figured for consistency, it's kind of best to just have two, because I'm either starting with Koffing or I'm starting with Ekans. I usually want to start with Koffing, but there are times where you do want to kind of start with Ekans. It kind of just depends on going first, second, you know, what deck you're playing against. I won one game. I won a game going first. It was against a Mewtwo Gardevoir, and all they got down on their turn was Ralts, right? So then turn 2, I was able to just evolve Koffing into Weezing, go for tackle, and then with the poison damage and the weakness, I literally won in 2 turns. So it was actually very nice. And I think that's why this was such a good deck pick, because a lot of the meta is Gardevoir Mewtwo, which is weak to dark. So it can be very good. It's a kind of an interesting matchup, right? Because it kind of depends on, you know, kind of the luck of the draw. I mean, that's kind of how the game works. But I did notice whenever I played against them, where they used like the baby Mewtwo, the non-EX one, it made it a lot more difficult because a lot of times we'll kind of just sit there and take hits. And it was kind of hard to play around. So out of this list right here, I think the only thing I would really change would be to find some kind of card to cut for another Sabrina. There were a lot of times where I really wished that I had another Sabrina and I would actually like lose the game, right? I would come back and win game 3, but there were a lot of situations where that extra Sabrina would have been very helpful. I don't really know what I would cut though. Maybe a potion, I'm thinking. I think double X speed is definitely necessary because there are times where you're trying to pivot out Weezing and you don't have a Koga, so you can go double X speed and have an energy attached and go into Arbok. The potions are nice for certain matchups. There are times where having both is very helpful. So I really don't know what else I would cut. I think you need the research just for consistency because you do need to get your Pokemon out as fast as possible. So I think maybe either red card or a potion I would cut for an extra Sabrina. The red card was also nice because there are times where you're kind of looping Weezings, they're drawing cards, and then hitting them with a red card can be very detrimental to their game plan. So I do think the red card is a very good card to have as well. But this part here, I think, is a very solid list. Like I said, I was able to start 8-0. It was very consistent. There were very few games where I felt like I really couldn't do anything at all. So overall, for consistency purposes, I think this is the way to go with this deck. I have seen different variations where you include other Pokemon and things like that, but I think just knowing every game, I'm either going to start with Koffing or Ekans, and then I'm probably going to have a research in hand or my evolutions to get going, or a Poké Ball to find the rest of my Pokemon. It's just very nice for consistency. And it's a very fun and interesting deck, honestly. There's a lot of cool ways you can kind of pivot around your Pokemon to just be, very strong. Like, really what you always want to kind of do is have your Weezing in the active, poison their Pokemon, then you go Koga, pick it up, and then you go ahead and put Arbok in, and then you lock them in with Corner, which does 60 damage, and they are not able to retreat. And so basically you just kind of lock them in there and they take poison damage over time. Eventually you can retreat your Arbok, put Weezing back in. There's a lot of cool things that you can do, and it's kind of a way to kind of trap your opponent into the active. And that's why I think having a second Sabrina would be very nice, because there are times where there's stuff that's vulnerable on the bench and you have no way to switch it in. So having that extra Sabrina could be very, very nice. I'd love to have like a Pidgeot in this deck, but that just takes up too many cards. And so going into my matches, you guys can kind of see the matchups that we had here starting at the bottom. So round one, I ended up going against a Mewtwo Gardevoir. Actually, I didn't. That was actually a bye for me because they never showed up. So that was basically a non-existent match. Round two was against a Charizard deck. And it's funny because I was in the stream chat and somebody was asking to just get some games in, before the tournament started. And it was actually this person right here. So we had actually played, I think, 2 or 3 games before the tournament, and I lost all of them. But I ended up actually winning against them in tournament, which was very, very nice. Had some good pivot plays there. After that, another Mewtwo Gardevoir. You guys can see I played against, 4 or 5 of them actually. Played against 5 of them. So it was a pretty solid matchup for me overall, especially having that weakness, that extra 20 damage is very nice because, if you have Weezing in the active, they have Mewtwo EX, which has 150 health. You're doing 30 damage, plus 20 for weakness, plus 10 for poison, right? So you're doing 60 damage, and then you're gonna survive 1 turn probably, so they take 10 more damage from poison, and then you go for it again, and then they're basically almost dead. So it's very nice. Honestly, Giovanni could be very helpful too, because there were times, especially in that matchup specifically, where they're living with 10 HP, so that extra 10 would be very, very nice. But again, for consistency purposes, I think the way that I built the deck, it makes the most sense. Maybe just the extra Sabrina. After that, we played against Marowak and Dugtrio. That was an interesting deck. I definitely had some coin flips go my way, which was very nice. But overall, it was an interesting matchup. It wasn't as tough as I thought it would be. But again, I did have some coin flips go my way, which was very nice. After that, 2 more Mewtwo Gardevoirs. I think one of them was where I said I won in turn 2, which was pretty nice. I know one of these lists, they played the baby Mewtwo, and like I said, that makes it a little bit more tricky, especially if they start with that, because that basically buys them the time to get set up. Once they get Gardevoir going, you kind of just lose if they have Gardevoir set up. So basically in this matchup, what you want to do is you want to knock out the Ralts as fast as possible. If you can knock out both Ralts, you basically win the game, because it's going to take too long for Mewtwo EX to get set up, and then when they do get an attack off, they have to basically waste all their energies. So if you can knock out the Ralts right away, you basically win the matchup instantly. It's kind of free, but it comes down to that. After that, I did play against this electric deck right here, and I want to say this person, going into round 7, they were the other undefeated person. They were actually ahead of me, so they were actually first in bracket, and they ended up losing round 1 in Top Cup, which is crazy. But this was a very, very close game. Like, I only won this, I think, in one of our games. They went Zapdos. They needed to land 1 heads, and they landed 4 tails, and so they didn't get it, and so I ended up winning. This was a very tricky one, because what makes this hard is that Electro has that free retreat. So you can't really trap it or anything. I mean, you can with Arbok, but what also makes it difficult is whenever they do have Lieutenant Surge, because they can move their energies from their bench to their active with some Pokemon. So I know in this deck they didn't run Lieutenant Surge, but I think it was the one I played in Top Cut. They did run that build with like the Raichus and everything, and so that makes it kind of hard. But again, you know, Zapdos EX, kind of a coin flip deck a little bit. Basically to knock out Arbok, you just need 2 heads, or you know, even to knock out Weezing with a Giovanni, you just need 2 heads. So that's what made it very difficult. I basically had to play around Zapdos and kind of wait for them to stack their energies, and then that's when I used Sabrina, lock something else in the active, and so that's where that second Sabrina will be very, very helpful. And then yeah, going into Top Cut, my round 8 actually DQ'd as well, so yes, I did get 2 DQ wins. It was like super late in the night, it was like 1 in the morning at this point, so I don't really blame them for dropping. I think they dropped before they announced Top Cut because they didn't think they were going to make it with 3 losses. So yeah, they just ended up not showing up. But then we did have our round 9 matchup against the eventual champion. They had a very interesting deck. So you can see right here, it's the electric build here. Like I said, the Electro, kind of annoying to deal with. The Raichu with Lieutenant Surge makes it very tricky because Raichu is able to do 140 damage, can knock out anything that I have. So it's very hard to kind of lock things the way that you want to. And so because of that, I had honestly like a very hard time with this deck. I think this went to game 3, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it'll show me. Does it show me? I don't think it does. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this one went to game 3 if I remember correctly. It was a pretty close set. I mean, one of the games I know was like not close at all. And then I think I barely won game 2, and then game 3 ended up it wasn't close at all. So it was kind of a difficult matchup. I think overall, out of all the like kind of meta decks right now, I think that's kind of the hardest one to deal with, in my opinion, just because of Lieutenant Surge, or a lot of these electric builds run all kinds of Pokemon. So there are a lot of workarounds to playing against Arbok and Weezing, so it can be very difficult to play against. Thankfully, I avoided playing against the Ditto because that doesn't sound like fun at all. It sounds like it's going to go a long time, and I think there was actually a lot of Arbok Weezings that ended up playing each other with Wigglytuff and, you know, all the different statuses. So I'm sure those games went to time, and that's why this tournament took a little while. But overall, it's a very fun deck. I think it does okay against a lot of these decks that are meta relevant right now, especially B2 Gardevoir. Like I said, for that matchup, I think a Giovanni would be helpful, or a second Sabrina. And then with the electric deck, I think that second Sabrina would also be very helpful. Yeah, overall, it was a very fun event. Like I said, I don't know if there's going to be a weekly thing. I'm guessing it is, but I'll have all the information in the description below if you guys want to enter these tournaments as well. And yeah, honestly, like, I think I did pretty good for my first tournament. Like, I've been wanting to enter a pocket tournament for a while now. I just haven't actually done it, but having the 8-0 start was very, very nice. Like I said, I definitely had some close games. I relied on some coin flips for sure, but overall, this deck felt very consistent, and I highly recommend testing it out. And if you guys do want to see some gameplay of this deck, just go ahead and let me know in the comments. I'll make another video showing you guys how to play the deck and what changes I would make to my list. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about my run a little bit. I did want to stream it, but I ended up getting home right before it started, so I didn't get a chance to actually stream it. So if you guys are interested, maybe I'll stream them in the future. We'll have to kind of wait and see. But yeah, that's about it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you all in the next one.